And we are live, back with another episode, another week of your wildest fantasy football show. Hope you all enjoyed the AFC breakdown episodes. What was your guys' favorite episode so far?
I think the AFC South is my favorite. I mean, partly, I love shitting on the Colts. Secondly, it's always fun to have the fans be able to interact with us. Live shows are the best shows.
I'd say the same. First live show in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to say. It's probably my favorite so far. So
Oh yeah.
I was a
again, getting
big fan of the last episode of Breaking Bad. I think that's my favorite episode of anything so far. Let's
I
get
haven't
into the
watched it.
headlines. We have a lot to talk about today. Pretty full episode of the NFC East. Before we get into that, just a couple headlines. Stafford battling bad tendinitis in throwing arm. It's apparently not a new injury, something that he's dealt with for the last couple of years. He got a shot in the offseason. Doesn't seem like that's working too well. It's just a pain management thing, though. We don't expect it to get in the way of him playing. Does this really affect anything fantasy wise? How you're judging him, how you're judging anybody else on this team?
No, it's not moving Cooper Cup down any for me. It's not hurting Stafford. I mean, he's been dealing with it for a while. I'm pretty sure they did all right last year with him battling the same thing. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as far as that's concerned. Other big update is Chris Godwin, wide receiver for the Buccaneers, was practicing with the team for the first time since tearing his ACL, Achilles,
ACL, and
ACL.
it was such a tragic play
It was a
last
weird
year.
one.
I remember being in the bottom feeder half of my fantasy playoffs, and I saw him go down, and I knew he wasn't getting back up healthy.
I hate to see
Just a
it.
tragic play, but love to see him back on the field.
You hate to see it. You kind of did make it a little bit about you there, but Godwin back. That's the good news. And
Huge news.
he didn't start off on the PUP. We're going to talk about him more in the NFC South episode that comes out on Thursday. But quick, what are your expectations for Godwin now that he's back at practice already?
I don't think it's an understatement to say he's going to finish as the wide receiver one on the year. I mean, he's got Tom Brady throwing the football. They're going to throw the ball probably 40 to 55 times a game. Give me some of that, baby. Give me some of that. Chris Godwin's going to catch at least 75% of the balls. Mike Evans, bum. Julio Jones, bum. No Gronk, bum. Leonard Fournette gained 350 pounds this offseason. Bum. Chris Godwin, number one wide receiver in fantasy football. You heard it here first.
The number one.
The
Are you
number
like trolling or are you serious? Because I think there's a lane where I've been high on Chris Godwin the whole stretch that we've been doing this show, and ever since we've been started our rankings.
Right.
I have him in the wide receiver one category. Do not have him as my wide receiver one on the year. Do you currently have him as your number one wide receiver?
I mean, let's just put it this way. Last year, he played 14 games, 127 targets. I'm a little trolling, but at the same time, there's a lane of opportunity for him to be the wide receiver one. I mean, 127 targets. That's no small feat for anybody. Average is what, like 11 yards a reception or something like that. It's insane. 127 times 11, huge freaking number, and that's with a missing 3 games. So
yeah, and if
I
you
can
think about,
I can see it happening. Like I could see him being a wide receiver one, maybe not the wide receiver one, but you know what? I'm going to stick with it. Wide receiver one, I can see it.
all right. If you think about where he's going right now, he's moving up draft boards,
As he should.
which is unfortunate for me, and Tody, who both had high expectations, and probably Kinney as well, who were able to get him super late in drafts. He's moved his way up from, I think, like wide receiver 31 to wide receiver 23. We're going to ask a either or question on Thursday's show. A little foreshadowing there between him and another wide receiver, and I kind of, at this point, expect it to be unanimous. But ADP-wise is kind of a different, or kind of not as much of a difference. So let's get into the division at hand today, the NFC East. Some people say the NFC least, but I like to think positively and not kind of put that hate on people.
Hallelujah.
I like the optimism.
Optimism isn't boring in life.
Let's start off with a little game of who'd you rather?
Who?
I'd rather not.
Okay, let's think here. We're going to talk about players. I'm going to throw a couple players out there, and we're going to run through ADP, guys that are around similar spots, and you guys are going to tell me, would you rather have this player or the other player going around where these guys are going? And maybe even a little lower or a little higher. We'll see. Start off with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is currently going as running back 15 on ESPN. Might be a little bit different in other formats, but that is one spot behind Nick Chubb. Would you rather have Nick Chubb or Saquon Barkley? Start off pretty easy.
Nick Chubb.
Kenny's thinking.
I'd probably say Nick Chubb.
Okay, that's a little closer, a little bit
close.
more thought than I would expect from somebody to have on Saquon Barkley. Not in a bad way. I'm kind of intrigued. Like, what bumps you into the conversation of considering Saquon Barkley versus Nick Chubb? Because me and Cody both were kind of Nick Chubb right away.
Well, I mean, if given what we know right now, the opportunity in the offense and just the potential for ball possession, we currently know that. Well, actually, we know that Watson's or the NFL is that we don't know what's going to happen with Watson, so it's going to be it could be 6 games, it could be the whole season, it could be nothing. So I think if you just based on that volatility right now, I think drafting a guy like Saquon and his offense, they beefed up the offensive line. Dable's got some good ideas. I think he's got a very good offensive mind, just coming from the Bills being their offensive coordinator for this great stretch. So Saquon Barkley does catch passes in the backfield. So it's just if we can see the 2019 version of Saquon Barkley this year, I think all hats to him. I think sky's the limit for Saquon.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the potential's obviously there. It's kind of that conversation of where is the floor, especially with they address some offensive line stuff, but I'm not sure they fix the offensive line stuff. We don't know how good this offense is going to be as a whole. We don't know. There was some running back stretches, I would say, at the end of the year, especially with Devin Singletary, where they could have a lead guy that was fantasy viable, but not necessarily the position that they put the most value into in Buffalo. I'm interested to see how the season goes for Saquon, and I'm interested to hear what particularly Kenny has to say for Saquon Barkley or Aaron Jones.
I'm saying Saquon Barkley here. over Aaron Jones.
Okay.
Give me
Is
Aaron
it-
Jones.
Yeah, I'm also going to take Aaron Jones. Is there I'm trying to think of a guy between Nick Chubb and Aaron Jones. Are you taking Alvin Kamara with maybe suspension looming or Saquon Barkley?
I think I'm taking Kamara over
Okay.
Saquon.
That's interesting because I'm taking Nick Chubb and Aaron Jones over Kamara.
You're also taking
Kamara-
those guys over
yeah.
Saquon. So
Yes.
I have
You guys have it all backwards here, but it's all good. Alvin Kamara, there's no guarantee he gets the suspension this year.
It's
Where-
far from a guarantee that he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean it's
We can
up
talk.
to-
We'll
yeah,
talk more
yeah,
about
we'll
him.
talk about that later. But Saquon Barkley is almost a guarantee to miss games too. Where I think, I mean, he missed his rookie season. He didn't miss any. He missed 3 in 2019. He missed all but 2 2020. He missed what 4 or 5, I think, last year. But then when he came back, he really only had 2 weeks of viable fantasy opportunity where he hit double digits. So even if he's on the field last year, you kind of had him sitting, or you were just losing when he came back. So give me a guaranteed Alvin Kamara. Give me Aaron Jones, who could be the focal point in this offense. Give me Nick Chubb on one of the run heaviest offenses in the league. Give me any of those boys over Saquon Barkley.
I think that's a really interesting point as far as Kamara might miss games. Saquon has a history of missing a lot of games. Let's get a couple more in here just to gauge kind of the value that maybe more so Toady has on Saquon. Are you taking Javonte Williams or Saquon Barkley?
Javonte Williams.
Okay. What about James Conner or Saquon Barkley?
James Conner. That one's closer. That one's closer.
I agree with both of those. Are you taking Cam Akers or Saquon Barkley?
Cam Akers.
Okay. Are you taking Miles Sanders or Saquon Barkley?
Saquon Barkley.
All right, that's where it is. I have a couple guys higher. I probably would have stopped after James Conner. I have James Conner and Javonte over, and then I go to Saquon, and then I have Zeke. I didn't even bother asking the Zeke question with you.
As you should.
And then what about David Montgomery? That'll be the last one I throw out here.
I really like David, but at the same time, I think the Bears are so stupid. So they're not going to utilize David to his fullest potential. And
They're going to utilize him on special teams.
Yeah, they're just going to, be like, hey, you're just going to punt return for us, kick return for us, even though it's only going to happen, 1,000 times a game anyway, but still not going to get the rushing stats for him.
I think with all this being said, as training camp goes on, as we see a couple preseason games get closer to week 1, I think we can see here that Saquon potentially could come at a discount in your drafts if you're, scrounging in between that, middle of the second, early third round, and you still have, what I see as a top tier running back between, guys who you would draft between round 4 to round 6. I don't think that's going to lose you your draft despite these past 2 seasons. I mean, you could say the same about Christian McCaffrey. Hasn't been healthy these past 2 years, and I think that offense will be revamped with hopefully their new quarterback change, and same with the Giants hiring their new head coach, drafted well. So I think we're going to see a 2019 Saquon Barkley this year, or 2019-esque Saquon Barkley.
If you're getting that in, I don't agree with you on the McCaffrey comparison, because when McCaffrey comes back, he puts up 20 plus points. For Saquon, like what he was saying, had some ugly football down the stretch. I'm more so worried about that. Just with him, I know a lot of the talk of he wants to bounce everything outside. And when you watch them, sometimes it does feel like that, like he's trying to break off a big play every play and not just taking the 3-4 yard runs up the middle and trying to make them all touchdowns. And that doesn't necessarily work. And then you lose yards because of that. I'm more worried about that kind of running style. But I agree with you that I think a lot of people are, and that makes him a value. I think his sweet spot is if you want to go running back heavy and you pick at the top of round 1. So say you get one of the top 2 picks, you take Jonathan Taylor number 1, you come back at the back of the second round. I think Saquon's probably going to be one of the better backs there. And I think that you can grab him there, and you might even be able to grab him with one of the first 3 or 4 picks, depending on your league, in the third round. I think that he is going to be a value in drafts, despite me having him below where his ADP is. I don't think he's going to go as the running back 12, where he's ranked in sleeper right now, in a lot of drafts.
Yeah, I think it all depends on where you get Saquon. If you can get Saquon in the third, I like him being your bye week fill-in, maybe a flex play every once in a while. If you
I think that's wild.
Well, if you went Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, that could be
that's if you're getting all 3 running backs.
Right, but if you're going running back heavy, I think that on sleeper right now, that's kind of what you got if you pick second overall, is what you could get if Saquon falls to the third. If I'm saying he goes 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, then that's where I would pick him up. I wouldn't pick him up in the second, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I have him above a flex play.
I don't think you're drafting for a flex play. I think you're kind of just drafting your team to have the strongest group of guys on your team. So I think whoever falls in the flex, I mean, technically you could put Jonathan Taylor in your flex if you wanted to.
You could.
You could move a guy like Cordero Patterson in your running back spot, as some of us did last year.
And if you did, you had the running back 2 on the year for 15 games. I mean, smart move by whoever did that.
I don't know about 15, but
it was a lot of the season except for the playoffs.
Let's move into the tight end conversation. We have Dalton Schultz. This one should be a little bit quicker of a conversation. Not as many tight ends to look at here. I'm just going to go down the list, and we can start off pretty quick with Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews or Dalton Schultz. And I think we're all going to take Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews ahead of Dalton Schultz.
Mm-hmm. Moving on.
I'm going off my rankings here, which may be a little bit of a wrong idea. Let me move into the ADP and draft trends. Kyle Pitts or Dalton Schultz?
Dalton Schultz.
Dalton Schultz. I'm going Dalton Schultz.
Kyle Pitts, baby.
By a mile here.
Yeah,
Dalton
by a
Schultz
mile
by a
for
million.
Kyle Pitts. No, Kyle Pitts.
What is it? Okay. What is it about
seems
Kyle
like we have
Pitts?
a wide stretch of field here to be discussed.
Okay, since you two are in agreement, I'll just state the facts here for why Kyle Pitts is better. Kyle Pitts, if you think about Atlanta's offense, who do they have? Kyle Pitts, Cordell Patterson. If you think about the Dallas Cowboys, okay, if you think about the Cowboys offense, they have CeeDee Lamb, Zeke, Tony Pollard, Dak. Then they have Dalton Schultz.
Is Dak going to throw to himself?
Dak's going to run it instead of doing a little short down, 5 yard. He's going to do a 5-yard throw to Dalton Schultz, where he's going to run it for 7, get the credit for it. Dak does move. He's more agile. I just think that
more agile than Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder.
Mark, don't even. Anyway, Anyway, I think Kyle Pitts at the end of the season is going to have more catches, going to have a couple more fancy yards, more fancy points. He's just going to finish a little bit higher. That's why for me, Kyle Pitts is the guy. He has less established players around him who are going to eat into his receptions. And last year, bad year, but pretty sure he was getting drafted up in the top 3 last year too. He was 3 or 4. I think it was Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, DJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller. Like those were like the kind of the tier guys up there. That was
he was a top second tier guy last year.
Right.
He might have been getting drafted ahead of Mark Andrews in some weeks.
Right. And Dalton Schultz had 3 the back end of the season he was better, but through the first 11 games he only had 2 games above 10 points. I mean, let's not
That's not true.
First, he had last year, 2021.
He had 6.
He had week 3, he had 20. Week 4, he had 11.
Week 1, he had week 1, he had 10.5. Week 3, he had 26.
Are we doing standard or PPR?
Well, we're definitely not doing standard. We've never done standard.
All right. We also did half-point PPR for our rankings, though. So.
Yeah, if we want to go off half, we can go off half.
Half, he's underneath 10.
In week 1. Okay.
For most of the first 11 games. Back half of the season, he was better. But give me a guy who's got more upside. Give me Kyle Pitts.
I mean, at that rate, then Kyle Pitts was too.
I don't know why you guys shit on Kyle Pitts like that, but I know it's supposed to call
okay. Let me go back to the first point you made. You said Kyle Pitts doesn't have as many weapons to compete with.
Mm-hmm.
And Dalton Schultz has to worry about Dak and all the other guys. Dallas Cowboys lost Amari Cooper, one of their top wide receivers, and Kyle Pitts gained Drake London, a guy that I think they expect to be a top receiver. They took him pretty early in the first round, or one of their top receivers. Let's say that doesn't affect anything. Dalton Schultz finished as the tight end 3 last year. Kyle Pitts finished as the tight end 6. I think all that aside, probably the main reason why I'm taking Dalton Schultz ahead of Kyle Pitts amongst other people that we'll talk about. Dalton Schultz has Dak throwing him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we even know who's throwing the ball in Atlanta, but we know that it's probably going to be one of the lesser quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. That's kind of my concern.
Atlanta has Cordell Patterson, Drake London, which, if depends on how high your stock is on Drake London, would vary your argument here.
And Cordell,
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, all of us have CD Lamb inside the top 12.
But what does that matter?
Because CD Lamb is going to demand more targets than Drake London, and you also have to account for Tony Pollard and Zeke, whereas for Atlanta, he is going to be, at worst, the third guy, whereas Dallas,
Kyle Pitts was the top guy last year, and he performed worse than Dalton Schultz. That's my thing, is what does that matter more so based on the offense being it's the Atlanta Falcons versus the Dallas Cowboys, and we expect one of those offenses to be better because last year Kyle Pitts was the guy. Dalton Schultz had more competition, and he still outperformed Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts also had 7 less touchdowns in 1,000 yards. Kyle Pitts had 1,000 yards, 1 touchdown. Dalton Schultz had 800 yards, 10 more receptions, 7 more touchdowns. So I think some touchdown regression back to the means here from both of them. Kyle Pitts is now beating him. I'm just going to say that too, that I don't think Dalton Schultz
I agree.
gets 7 more touchdowns. And, 10 targets, that's 5 points and half-point PPR. Lose 3 touchdowns from Dalton, gain 3 for Kyle, and it's a whole different conversation. Touchdown regression is going to happen for the positive for Kyle Pitts, negative for Dalton Schultz. I'm just a believer in Kyle Pitts getting more than 1 touchdown.
I agree. I still think that
6'6" tight end who manhandles people.
I would agree that Kyle Pitts' performance this year is going to go up. We know that Falcons' offense was abysmal last year, and they, clearly were just saying, "Here you go, Cordero. Just take it and do whatever." I mean, who did the Cowboys gain this year that's going to demand more targets than Dalton Schultz, other than CeeDee Lamb? I think the Cowboys offense will be much more efficient than the Falcons offense. I think it'll take Kyle Pitts a couple weeks to, get started, which, could start to scare people. So maybe, you get to week 2, week 3, you don't really see Kyle Pitts, performing at what you drafted him at. Could be a buy low, but I think at Dalton Schultz in the 5th is a huge value. I really don't think that's going to hurt you if drafting a tight end in the 5th is unquote reaching for you. I think anywhere you draft Kyle Pitts above the 4th round is a bit of a reach for me. So
good conversation.
We gotta move on.
We'll move through the rest of the ranks. I think I could argue this all day. But I'll stop.
I agree.
Dalton Schultz or Darren Waller? I'm going Dalton Schultz.
It's very close, but I think I'm probably saying Darren Waller. It's kind of the same situation. I mean, you have a alpha wide receiver 1 in, CeeDee Lamb on the Cowboys, Devontae Adams on the Raiders, and I mean, unless you think Hunter Renfrow is getting more receptions this year than Darren Waller, I think it's, fruit for discussion. I think Waller, when healthy, we've seen him when healthy, is just a monster out there. I think last year's injury was just a, kind of minutia at this point. So I should say an enigma, not minutia. But
I honestly wouldn't have known the difference. I don't know what minutia means. We don't have to talk about it though. I think I kind of prefer not knowing what it means. Keep going.
The
Sure.
mystery.
Kind of speaks for itself. But I really think these guys are interchangeable. I think Darren Waller, if you're not getting him in the 3rd round, you're getting him in the 4th round, and I think that's a discount. But again, I don't really think either of these guys are losing your league. I think they both have the same type of upside in their respective offenses. Just behind that wide receiver 1, we think. But I'm probably taking Darren Waller here. So, but I know personally, I am higher on Darren Waller, compared to Kondo. So I think it's just kind of, whatever taste any of these guys, give you.
Mm-hmm. I'll run through my rankings quick because I feel like I'm going to be the outlier for most of this. My tier 2 tight ends are Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson. Starting off my 3rd tier is Dalton Schultz.
TJ Hawkinson we're high on.
I'm high on TJ. I think it was a bad year. I'm ready for him. I'm good. But that's just kind of where I am. So all those guys over Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz is not going to get 8 touchdowns again. I also think that people are underestimating how good Dallas's defense can be. And I think that the fact that they're going to be winning games does not translate well to fantasy football for anyone but running backs or Lamar Jackson and running quarterbacks. I think that when you're up, the game script changes from passing the ball to 5-yard runs, 5-yard runs, 5-yard runs. So the Cowboys are probably going to be winning more games than Atlanta. Atlanta's probably going to be behind in those games. Same with a lot of other teams. I just think that they're going to have to throw the ball. Game strips is going to dictate that you get more targets, more opportunity. I see these guys doing it. I understand. I like Darren Waller. Having the alpha. I'm a little sad to say I have to be lower on Hunter Renfrow this year than I want to be. Being the being the third guy in this offense hurts me to say, but it is what it is. But yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I mean, in response to Darren Waller versus Dalton Schultz, I just like Dalton Schultz as a red zone threat, especially you got CD. He's not necessarily like the big guy you're going to in the red zone.
Right.
Darren Waller has been known over the last few years to not necessarily get the touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Just like weirdly, that has been a knock that I feel like has been around fantasy football, that he just for some reason has not gotten a ton of touchdowns for the target volume that he gets. He had 2 last year. He missed a lot of time. I think the year before that,
he had 9.
Look it up.
And then
Okay,
2019 he had 3.
Yeah, I don't.
2020
I don't.
Yeah, then I admit
well, you
defeat there.
you were right. You were right in 2019 and 2021 that he kind of didn't, but it seems to be an every other year thing. So I think this year he's going to have more touchdowns. So
that's tough for me.
Big even number guy.
Yeah, it's the even number years.
Yeah. I mean, it's just statistically proven. It's nothing against you, Kondo.
No, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Dalton Schultz more than most people. I am aware of that. And I think baked into it is Darren Waller's going in like the 40s, 50s. You can get Dalton Schultz in like the 60s of picks. I think there's not going to be as much of a difference. I think we all have George Kittle over Dalton Schultz. That's where my line is.
Okay.
I want to hear lastly before we go off of this, and we're not gonna have any rebuttal. I just want to hear the TJ Hawkinson argument.
TJ Hawkinson before his injury had like 2, maybe 3 games underneath 10 points. Detroit is not Dallas. Quite literally different states. Yeah, they're in different states, different climate. Dallas is going to be up. Lions will not be up almost ever. So they're going to have to pass more touchdown opportunity. And who's the wide receiver 1 in Detroit?
Good question.
Exactly.
They have a lot of
They have a lot of question marks. So give me TJ Hawkinson. I just think the opportunity is there. And I think when you're drafting, I put him 1 above him. Tier break, yes, but 1 above him. I'm not going to, if you want Dalton Schultz over TJ, fine. Dalton Schultz is going to be a little bit more safer, but his ceiling's more limited than TJ Hawkinson. Whereas TJ's ceiling is 25, 30, 35 points. Dalton Schultz is like 20. Highest he's going to get you, which is
kind of sounds like you're ranking TJ Hawkinson over Kyle Pitts.
No. Kyle Pitts starts off my tier 2. Kyle Pitts starts off tier 2. TJ ends tier 2. So if you take any of them, fine. But Kyle Pitts is ranked higher for me.
Let's move into some quarterback conversation here. Jalen Hurts. We had a lot of talk on Jalen Hurts, I think, last year being pretty consistent. So I'm excited to see where people have him this year. First 3 quarterbacks on the board, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. I don't think any of us would have Jalen Hurts over them. 4th quarterback off the board, Lamar Jackson. Would you rather have Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts.
Give me Lamar.
I feel like I'm the Lamar guy on this show.
Mhm.
I have them neck and neck. I redo my rankings before we record. Like every time before we record, I go through and adjust.
Mhm.
And I switched Jalen Hurts to be ahead of Lamar Jackson. I really don't think that it's a big deal because it's like Tony said, you have two guys in the same tier. If you want to take Lamar over Jalen Hurts, I get it. I don't know what made me do it. I think it's just the amount of weapons in Philly in comparison. But it's a really hard conversation to have.
Yeah, for me, it's a tier break for me. My second tier is Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. That's my second tier.
Wow.
Jalen Hurts isn't in there. We can talk about Patty Mahomes not being my top tier guy this year either, but I think the fact that Lamar will run it no matter what. And especially in the red zone, it's not a passing opportunity except to Mark Andrews. If he ain't open, Lamar's going to go spin, dance, jump, hurdle, all the cool adjectives to use to elude people. And he's going to get in the end zone. Jalen Hurts is not quite like that. They added A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown's a fantastic wide receiver. I think A.J. Brown's going to have a good year. But I think the passing upside for Jalen Hurts is huge, but the rushing upside, which boosts quarterbacks so much in this league, just goes to Lamar. So give me Lamar.
Yeah. Kenny, do you have an answer for this one?
Again, I think it's pretty interchangeable. I think we're going to see Lamar Jackson perform higher this year to outperform Jalen Hurts. Again, I just think weapons are there in Philly, beefed up at the wide receiver position. Marquise Brown's out of town in Baltimore. So I think, again, these guys are very, neck and neck in my rankings. I have them 5 and 6. But
Marquise Brown is almost out of here for the Arizona Cardinals, though, too. Driving 126 miles an hour, criminal speeding.
Yeah, we probably could have talked about that at the head of the show.
Yep, probably could have.
He was back at practice, but that doesn't mean,
that suspension.
That suspension is not looming. So just bake that into your ADP for Marquise Brown, everyone.
Yeah.
We don't know how fast or slow it's coming, though.
We don't know how fast or slow his ADP is rising or sinking.
126 miles an hour.
We just know how fast he's driving. That's about it.
Yep. But I think Baltimore is going to be more willing to trust their running backs more, whereas I think at Philly we don't really see clear waters in their running backfield. And I mean, Miles Sanders even came on like PFF and said, "Don't draft me in fantasy," which is never good because I don't think he was kidding. So
you might have to watch back the tape on that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
that's a good lead in for another question that we're gonna have later in the show. But
so I'm probably gonna take Jalen Hurts today. I could say take Lamar Jackson tomorrow. Again, these guys are 5 and 6 in my rankings. They, my rankings change every day.
I agree. I think the biggest thing for me in it was the consistency last year with Jalen Hurts, where there was episodes that I know me and Tody were talking about the lack of consistency with Lamar, but Lamar does have more of that upside. And I think it depends what you want in your quarterback. Do you want a quarterback that's going to go out and win you your week with a 40-point week, but may let you down with like 18, where Jalen Hurts, I feel comfortable him giving me 25 around there throughout the season.
The back half of last year, week 8 on. How many times did Jalen Hurts get above 20 points?
2.
Exactly.
How many times to Lamar? Is
How many
there
times
also-
Lamar Jackson?
Hey, we don't
Lamar-
got to talk about Lamar like
Okay.
that. Okay. Lamar.
Yeah,
is a
Lamar
good
had-
guy.
You brought it up.
I shit on Lamar enough that I have to support him at some point.
Fair. Yeah, this is a little bit of a flipped conversation that I did
Right.
not expect.
I mean, running backs are a high command. Okay. Lamar Jackson is the running back of the year every year for me.
Okay.
Disgusting comment. Let's go through a couple more guys here quickly and then move on to the wide receivers that we have to talk about.
Mhm.
Kyler Murray. I'm taking Kyler.
Kyler.
Tom Brady. I'm taking Tom Brady.
Interchangeable.
They're in the same tier for me as well.
Same tier. I got Dak ranked higher, but I think he's going to have more rushing touchdowns this year than Tom Brady.
That's interesting. I do not have Dak ranked
Close.
higher. I have Dak in a different tier, but
Okay.
we don't have to debate that.
Tom Brady.
Any other weird name? Russell Wilson,
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. I think that might
Yeah,
be,
give me
Burrow.
Jalen Hurts. Give me
that
Jalen.
might be unanimous. That might be where we end this conversation. Overrated, overrated, underrated. Wide receiver 1 edition. That's what we were trying to say there. Not necessarily wide receiver 1s in fantasy,
Mhm.
but wide receiver 1s in their prospective teams, and depending on how you draft, could be your wide receiver 1s. Although I hope at least one of these guys is not, having drafted them last year as my wide receiver 1. CeeDee Lamb, currently going as wide receiver 7, 16.4 overall via ESPN. Do we think that CeeDee Lamb is overrated, underrated, appropriately rated? What do we think about CeeDee Lamb?
I love it. I love it. Give me CeeDee Lamb in the second round as my wide receiver 1. I love it.
Yeah, I have him right at 7. I think behind all the guys that are going ahead of him. I think it's the perfect place for him. I'm not a big – I don't want to say I'm not a big receiver in the second round guy, but more so like late in the second round.
Well, I guess like if you're picking, hypothetically, you're picking at the 11th spot and you get like a DeAndre Swift, CeeDee Lamb mix up right there.
You're not mad about it.
I'm fine
Not
with
mad
that.
about it.
I think that's a fine start to the thing. I also think where you're picking has to play a little bit of a toll on you. I mean, if you're picking team 10, 11, 12, you don't feel as good about it getting CeeDee Lamb into second. But if you're picking 1, 2, 3, 4, and you got a CMC, CeeDee Lamb kind of, double up right there, you're loving it.
That's where I think the opportunity is with CD for sure, especially because there are a couple question marks there of just not living up to the expectation last year and being the first year as the guy. But I have CD in my top 7.
Right there with you.
As do I. I think he's very appropriately placed.
Cool. Let's move on to, I would say, a more controversial choice. Someone who I think there's a good amount of discrepancy on. And AJ Brown going over from the Titans to the Eagles. Just a lot of unknowns. They drafted Devontae Smith pretty early the year before. We don't necessarily have the track record of this offense being awesome, but there's really high expectations. So what do we think about AJ Brown this upcoming season? Is he over or underrated based on ADP?
That's tough.
That's his current ADP.
Yeah.
Yep. I say a little bit over, but not really would be my statement.
That's like end of the fourth.
No, middle of the third right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
early middle of the third.
I actually wrote that wrong. Never mind.
He said 47.
Yeah, it's not 47. He's going like on the.
There we go. It's updated.
37-1.
I don't think it ever said 47.
No, it never did. Never did. I think I could see him finishing as wide receiver 13, but I think my problem is if I'm going running back heavy first and second round and he comes to me in the third as my number one wide receiver, I'm going to feel like I did something wrong in the first two pick. I'm serious. Like, I feel like
37-1's top of the fourth.
He's going in on the sleeper.
Yeah, but
he's been going 3.5, 3.6, 3.4. That's kind of where he's been going. And each of my
it's going to vary depending what platform you use.
Right. So I'm doing mine based off like third round period. I don't like it just because he's going to be my wide receiver one more than likely. If I'm doing running back heavy, then I feel like I'm going to mess up if I go running back heavy and AJ Brown's on my team. But if you can get like a Cooper Kupp, a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Debo, someone like that, and then AJ Brown, I feel more comfortable with that.
Like, would you rather have, if you went running back heavy early, would you rather have AJ Brown or Michael Pittman?
Pittman.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Cody said it best. If you get, if you miss out on a second round running back, if you're trying to go running back heavy, or I should say, if you miss out on those top tier running backs, if you miss out on, if you go running back first round and then wide receiver second round, miss out on that turn, and then you get AJ Brown as your wide receiver 2 on your team, that's great value there.
Right. It all depends on what if he's gonna be your wide receiver 1, I feel like I messed up. But if he's my wide receiver 2, I'm okay with that. Like, he has upside, there's unknowns, it's fine. But
I think that's what it is. It's the upside there. He's more of an upside pick.
Right.
And that's why we kind of do the tier breaks and the tiers, because with every pick, with every team you're constructing, there's going to be different things that you look at. Like Michael Pittman was a little bit safer, I think, going into the year than an AJ Brown. So you, based on the team you construct, you can choose from there. If you have them around the same point, do I want a guy in this tier that's a little bit more on the safe end? Do I want a guy in this tier that's a little bit more upside pick as a wide receiver 2 versus a wide receiver 1 who want to be a little bit more safe? So, yeah, I think I have him at wide receiver 14 right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of guys around his ADP that I'm going to take over him. And guys that are behind his ADP that I'm going to take over him, like Deontay Johnson, who's going 15 picks later around. I will gladly take Deontay Johnson over AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move into one that I'm interested in the most. Terry McLaurin, currently going as a wide receiver 16, 43.3. Me to wide receiver 2 for Terry McLaurin. Do we think that he is over or underrated? Also, I want a quick shout out before we got this. During our last segment, I smacked the hell out of this mic on accident, not on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very interested to see what that sounded like for the people at home.
Nice.
Probably not pleasant.
No. I think Scary Terry is appropriately rated or ranked, whatever. I'm fine with it. Scary Terry is Scary Terry for a reason. He will get you 3 points or he'll get you 30 points, which I think is kind of what a wide receiver 2 kind of does. So mid wide receiver 2, I'm fine with that. Maybe a little bit lower, like wide receiver 18, but that's just that's a small little dump for me.
I think Terry McLaurin's going to get lowered in terms of ADP. Not a a dig at his talent. I just think other guys are rising. We look at guys underneath Terry McLaurin like Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, these guys who are getting back to health. These guys are, could potentially rise above Terry McLaurin. Again, I think you're drafting Terry McLaurin for your wide receiver 2/flex position, not your wide receiver 1. So I am very happy drafting Terry McLaurin at this ADP. If he decreases in ADP, or I should say if he increases in ADP, I am gladly taking him. I think the floor is higher this year with a Carson Wentz. Say what you want about Carson Wentz, but look what Michael Pittman did last year with Carson Wentz. The floor is there. You're not getting balls from Taylor Heineke or any other quarterback there. So
right. Scary Terry. Yeah.
Again, I think Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry this year, his floor is 8 points to 30. He could rip off 12 for 127 and a touchdown, or he could get 4 for 50.
Yeah, I think my Scary Terry had 9 games above 10 points, 9 games below 10 points last year. Quite literally 50-50. I mean, granted, one's a bye week and he missed a week, so I guess it's 9-7. But
I think that would be 9-8. Oh no, you said he missed a week too. Excuse me. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah. But also that was in full point PPR, so some of the time. Either way, about half the games he had over 10 points in half-point leagues. I think that's fine for a wide receiver 2 going in the 4th round. That's fine. Scary Terry all the way, baby.
Michael Pittman finished as a wide receiver 17. I think the Colts offense is a lot better than the Commanders offense.
Oh yeah.
I think Terry McLaurin is better than Michael Pittman, so that might offset. But I unfortunately see the ceiling as like around wide receiver 17 because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say overrated. I have him as my wide receiver 21. And I could see him making his way up, so I'm not going to make like that big of a stink about it and like be crazy argumentative, but wide receiver 21 for now. Let's get into fantasy face-offs. Still have some big players to talk about here, some big arguments to have. Starting with a guy who said, don't draft me in fantasy football, apparently. With Miles Sanders versus Antonio Gibson. I don't even know where I would go on this now that I know that Miles Sanders doesn't want to be drafted. I don't like that move at all.
But think about this from the NFL perspective, not fantasy for a second, NFL. You go on to a nationally televised platform with millions of people watching, players, coaches, wives of players, girlfriends, boyfriends, all that good shit. Okay. You go out there and you say, I am not going to have any part of this offense this year. Boom. Mic drop. Huge disruption to the game flow. Coaches.
Did you just say Mike Trout?
Mic drop.
Like that. I thought he said Mike Trout as well.
Mike Trout.
Who was a Philly guy, so I was okay with it.
But you go out, you say that. Now all these coaches that are going to be playing you, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants, they're like, oh my God, Miles Sanders said don't draft him. It's going to hurt him. It's going to hurt his, reputation, his contracts in the future. All this stuff is going to go down because of it. And so they're thinking, oh my God.
You think this is the end of Miles Sanders because he said don't draft me in fantasy?
Who is more alive, Corey Davis or Miles Sanders?
You think he's going to get the vet min because he said they're going to use that against him in negotiation?
No, they're not using it against him. He's using
I still don't know who you're picking, by the way.
I'm trying to tell you. He's using it as a mind game on all these other people so that way he can have such an explosive year because they're like, we don't have to worry about him. The balls are going to AJ. They're going, everywhere but to him. And then
I think that's the truth.
And I think Miles Sanders is just saying this as a ploy. Like when Kondo says, "Oh, I'm drafting, Cooper Kupp 1.1." We all know he's not going to. But if he says it to Kenny and me, then 2 out of the 9 people he's competing against are now believing him that that's who he's going to be taking. It's a ploy.
That's a tease for Friday's show.
Mm-hmm.
But so if Cody said he's drafting Cooper Kupp at the 101, Kano and I would say, you probably are.
Probably are. I have a history of spontaneous seconds
combustion
on the clock. Yeah, just spontaneous combustion. Draft day makes my brain hurt.
How about the answer?
I think you picked Miles Sanders.
Yeah, no, Miles Sanders is doing mind games on everybody, and it's working on the vast majority. I mean, listen to ESPN, Fantasy Pros, CBS, all these other, podcast, TV shows, and they're talking about it. Miles Sanders' stock is dropping. You can get Miles Sanders low now. Miles Sanders is going what? I'm trying to find him.
Running back 25 on ESPN.
He's going in the 6th round right now. Unheard of. I mean, he's going to be above Damian Harris, Mitchell, CEH, Dobbins, Jacobs. He's going to be above all these guys. But you're picking him a round later. I mean, the mind games by Miles Sanders is voila.
Are you drafting Miles Sanders above Kareem Hunt?
It's close. That'd be a close one. I'd go Miles Sanders, but I think just because I can get Miles Sanders, and then like a round or 2 later, I can pick up Kareem Hunt. That's just kind of why I'm going with that. If Miles Sanders falls to Kareem Hunt, that's gonna be something had to go going wrong.
I think for me, I am not thrilled to get one of these guys. But just to answer the question, I think I'm taking Antonio Gibson above Miles Sanders. I think all the talk with, him not getting short-term carries, goal line carries is all cap. Maybe we've seen Antonio Gibson perform.
Did you just say cap?
Cap.
Like your cap.
You capping?
No, I'm not.
You got a cap on.
I tell the truth all the time.
I said your cap. Like
no,
not.
Hey,
no,
buddy.
no.
Your cap.
Hey, buddy. Nouns, not adjectives. Nouns. But I think oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm taking Antonio Gibson in this conversation. Not thrilled about it. But I think we see Antonio Gibson's carries are higher than Miles Sanders at the end of the year. We just see that he's not dealing with a mobile quarterback in Carson Wentz compared to Jalen Hurts. I think there's more rushing opportunities for Antonio Gibson in the Commanders' offense. So for that reason, I am taking Antonio Gibson.
I'm taking Miles Sanders for all the reasons that Cody listed. Let's move on to the Dallas running backs. Zeke versus Tony Pollard. I think this is probably outside of this show a pretty easy conversation to have. Not a lot of tension. But around these parts,
which means these parts come.
I think there might be fists thrown. Which is not really an issue for anybody bodily harm wise, because we're virtual, but could be a problem for the stream. I don't know. I'm not expecting things to go well here.
Yeah, could be tough.
I'm gonna keep my mouth closed on this one.
All right.
Amen.
This might shock some people. I'm gonna take Ezekiel Elliott.
Sweet Jesus God.
Zeke for me is my RB16. I think he's one of. This is actually a shocking statement. I think he's one of the safer running backs in fantasy this year. Like, if you're looking for a guy that is going to get consistent volume because even when he was hurt and Tony Pollard was involved,
Mhm.
he was getting touches. Like, there's the 1 week or 2 weeks, Arizona, Washington, that he got 10 touches. Outside of that, he had a couple weeks where he had 9 carries, but he also had 6 catches. And he's getting around 15 touches a game, 15 to 20 touches a game. And then when he was healthy, he was getting pretty much 20 touches a game or closer to like 18 to 20 consistently. So you talk about a guy where you expect the volume to be there. I think it's a team that values the running game. And on early downs, I expect Zeke to be the primary runner. And he's not a guy who can't catch the ball either. This is a guy that I believe had 47 receptions last year in a year where Tony Pollard was involved a lot. I'm feeling pretty good about Zeke, especially going into the
Third round.
fact that, going later. And when we do look at when he was healthy, he was pretty awesome. I'm not saying I expect that, which is why, and I don't think anybody is, which is why he's going 16th as a running back. But if he can be anywhere close to that, get you around 13 a game, I think that is well worth the price that you're paying for him right now. And I'm not sure that Tony Pollard is going to have that same consistency as Zeke, just because of the touches.
Alrighty, so let me just fix what Kondo said because he lied to the people, which I don't like.
That's cap.
So, to the great people who listen to this show, Tony Pollard had 130 rushing attempts, 719 yards. Zeke, 237 rushing attempts, 1,002 yards. Now, to some people who are good at math, they realize 1,000 is greater than 719. But the people who are actually good at math realize it took Zeke over 100 more touches to get you those 300 yards. 100 more times he got beat up. 100 more times he put strain on his ankle, his knee, his arms, his ribs that were bothering him, his back that was bothering him. 100 more of those. Tony Pollard is the more explosive player on the team. I don't think that could be argued when Zeke had 0, and I mean 0, kick return touchdowns last year. Tony Pollard did have one. So, statistically speaking, that's infinity plus 1 more than Zeke had. Quite literally. Infinity's a big
I don't know about that.
Infinity.
Oh, no, that's I think you meant
what Zeke got plus 1. So infinity times what Zeke got plus 1.
Well, that's not what you said the first time. But
that's what I said.
You said infinity plus 1 more.
Yep.
Which would have been
infinity
that Tony Pollard had infinity.
Correct.
Okay.
Give me Pollard. Pollard's going 10 rounds later. I mean, Jesus, the guy is at a discount here. He's going to
Would you take, if Zeke, you had to choose between one at whatever pick it was, Zeke or Tony Pollard? No
Pollard.
ADP involved.
Pollard.
That's a disgusting
statement. Let me re-say it. Tony Pollard. Let me say it for the people in the back. Don't draft Zeke. Let me say it for everyone who can't hear. Zeke.
So you're just not touching Zeke at all?
If he drops to like the 6th round, I mean, sure. I would take him as a handcuff to Tony Pollard. But
that's abysmal.
Tony Pollard he finished as running back 28 last year. I don't think you have a handcuff or the backup to your team when you're supposed to be the workhorse guy and then have your backup and you not miss any games, be running back 28 unless there's a system in place to try to limit your touches. They're realizing you are not the Zeke of old anymore. Like some people would be like, "Oh, what about Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb?" Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb literally split the carries. It's 1A, 1B. It's who they are. People draft them as such. People don't look at Tony Pollard and like, "Oh, that's the 1B to Zeke." They're like, "That's the handcuff to Zeke. That's the Naheem Hines to Jonathan Taylor. That's the Alexander Madison to Dalvin Cook." That's how people are viewing him. But yet, with Zeke not missing a game, he was running back 28. Now imagine what happens. Zeke misses a game, which is going to happen. Misses a couple games.
I don't know about that. I mean,
Okay.
Zeke tore his PCL in
Mhm.
like week 5, and he didn't miss a game. And Zeke finished. This blows my mind. Maybe something I should have known. Zeke finished last season, and I want to move this to half PPR, as the running back 6 on the year.
6 standard, 7 for PPR. I don't get half point on this one, but yeah.
Which is nuts for where he's going now. And like, I think you could argue that he should have a finish around there. He's healthy. I expect Tony Pollard to be more, not necessarily more involved, but as involved. And I expect him to be more efficient because he's healthy. So I'm not saying that I'm taking Zeke that early. I'm saying, holy shnikes.
Now,
Zeke is a value.
Yeah. Now, question for you, Kondo.
Okay.
Cordell Patterson, running back 9 on the year last year, going in the early 8th round, 5 rounds after Zeke, 2 positions less. Or 2, you said if we're going to use old data, Zeke finished 7.
Well, that's not my
Cordell
only argument.
Right, but Cordell finished 9.
Yeah, and I have Cordell probably ahead of ADP.
Right, but you aren't picking him up you're not picking him up in the 4th.
No.
You're not picking him up in the 5th or 6th. You're going to wait till the 7th, 8th, maybe 9th. He might fall to. I mean,
that's not my only argument. I feel like I listed points earlier about the.
But I don't think there's
number one, the biggest thing with them, which we talked about, is in the Dalton Schultz and Kyle Pitts thing, is the situation. I think that's where it gets a lot better for Zeke than Cordero in that argument, and Tony Pollard. But as far as Zeke and Pollard go, I'm not saying anything about Pollard's talent. I do think Pollard is talented. It comes down to me, who's going to get more of the opportunity. And I think it's probably going to be pretty consistent with last year, especially with a healthy Zeke that's going to be more efficient than he was last year, as long as everything up front holds up. I trust that Zeke is going to get more work. I trust that Zeke's going to get more goal line work. So, yeah, give me Zeke versus Tony Pollard. All right. I think that wraps up that one. Last question. This could probably be a quick one. A Giants wide receiver or anyone else?
I mean, if we're talking like, are we talking like?
I think we're talking around this
Davis Price. I mean, if we're talking to him or any Giants wide receiver, give me a Giants wide receiver. But if we're talking like at ADP, I'm kind of avoiding Giants wide receiver. If a Giants wide receiver falls like 20 below their ADP, I think it's a discount. I think it's a better offense this year. You guys talked about a beefier line. I think Danny Dimes is going to have a better year. I just don't know who to trust. That's my problem.
I agree there. I think that's more the issue with the Giants. That being said, I feel like I have the guys from the Giants with Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay around where they're getting drafted. So I can't really say anyone else, but I think if I'm looking to take a flyer on a guy, it's probably Kadarius Toney.
Okay.
And
I'm fine with that.
if you want to take a shot on one of these guys late, go for it. I'm not going to say that it's an offense where I just don't want to be involved regardless of what player it is or anything like that.
Now, Kondo.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think at their current ADP, are you taking a guy such as Kadarius Toney or an MVS?
Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius
I don't even
Toney
have
or Claypool.
MVS on my thing.
Kadarius
Or-
Toney or Claypool.
I'm taking Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney or Alan Lazard.
Alan Lazard.
Alan Lazard.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was starting to think maybe I'm high on Kadarius Toney, and that kind of put it back into place. That
Kadarius Toney or one more. Kadarius Toney, Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just had to.
Yeah.
I had to make sure we were in like around the same ballpark. I'm kind of with
I
you.
think that was such a disgusting comparison. I just think that puts that debate to rest.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I mean,
That
depends
is
what you think. Kadarius Toney's got Danny Dimes, baby. We don't call him
He does.
Danny, Penny. We call him Danny Dimes because he's dropping dimes.
we call
Trevor-
Rashad Penny.
Rashad Penny.
Yeah. Who we're going to talk about later in the week. We have a week full of NFC episodes, so make sure to stay with us and follow along. Tomorrow is our special live episode on Toadie's. Can you say, is it your division or Aaron Rodgers' division? The NFC North.
I don't want to understate this year. It is my division. All right. If Aaron Rodgers wants to show up wearing a wife beater to practice, so be it. He's gonna see his match on Tuesday. That's all I gotta say. Tomorrow he's gonna see what he's up against. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what that means.
Tune back in.
All right, that's it for us today. We'll see y'all tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern.